Hey, what's up guys? I just wanted to go ahead and give you a quick tutorial on 3 types of traps that you can do in Lords Mobile. We have the rain traps, the solo traps, and the rally traps. Again, it's important to know that all trap accounts are expensive. I recommend if you're going to be a trap account, you want to start off right from the beginning with that account in mind of making a trap account. You don't really want to start at some later point in the game because, again, you don't want to accept turf quests, as that will add might to your account, and you don't really want that. Again, I recommend you get some help from your guild too. It helps a lot, and it kind of cheapens the cost a great deal. Again, there are a couple of disclaimers I want to throw out there. Again, you want to make sure that with the philosophy in mind in terms of what we're doing, okay, attack is generally best, HP comes in second, and defense is last. You don't want these stats any less than 25% of each other, but you don't want them 5% close to one another, which, again, the idea behind that is that if your HP and your attack are two below each other, it's okay if they're only 15% or so below one another, or 20, maybe 30%. But when you start dropping well past 50 to 100%, it's a huge problem, especially if the stats are too far from one another. You want to make sure that they're, close enough. So if your attack is, 250%, you want that HP to be not far behind it or higher. Again, there's no wrong reason to have your HP higher. It's just generally speaking, you don't want it any more or less than what you have by about 25%, generally speaking. Now, of course, of all trap accounts, you generally speaking, you want to have anywhere from 400 to 500 million in resources per bag. So that means that when you open up your bag, meaning the icon that looks like a bag on Lords Mobile, and you pull it up, you should have 400 to 500 million food, 400 to 500 million timber, ore, gold, etc. You want to have a lot of that stuff so that way when you are taking hits, that you can repair and heal those troops without taking any losses from not having the resources. Because again, you will spend 40 to 50 million at a time. It will very quickly become expensive, and frankly, I would almost recommend having more than just 400 to 500 million, but you can get by with it for a little while. Again, like I said, you don't want to accept any turf quests. If you do, it's not the end of the world, but I would suggest that you do not take as many as you can, because again, it adds a lot of unnecessary might. Again, so when you actually want to start building units, you want to actually consider building 15 level 25 banners. Again, it's the idea behind this is that you want to maximize the training speed. So if you're printing tier 4s, you want 1 barracks. If you're printing tier 3s, you want 2 barracks. So you'll get rid of one of these manners. And of course, if you're building tier 1s, then just replace one of these with another barracks. So you'll have 3 barracks and 13 manners. Or if you're building tier 3, you'll have 14 manners and 2 barracks, etc. Again, I advise that if you are going to build troops, you want to give your guild provide resources to you free of charge, because it's the easiest way. However, you can hit alts that are out and about on the map and obtain resources this way as well. Again, you want to make sure that you have 2 quick swaps. So you want one for your fake gear and then the other for your war gear. You want 2 talents. So you want one for economy, so one that's printing troops, research, and building, and the other for war. Again, you want to have several legendary heroes for war stats. So army attack is a focus. So heroes like Rose Knight and Bomber Goblin are our favorite picks. And again, you want to make sure that if you want some advice as to how you can earn that amount of resources and build it up in a short period of time, I recommend farming in the Code 66 event for resources. Again, hitting inactive accounts is a good way to get some resources, and hitting your daily monsters every single day with the energy that you have bagged. However, you don't have to. You can get by with not using the energy in your bags, but you can if you want to. Now, of course, what is a rain trap or a reinforced trap account? Essentially, a reinforced trap account is somebody that has a level 25 embassy and has managed to acquire a active guild to provide them. So essentially, their military research is at 9 or higher, meaning that these guys can be anywhere between 20 and 30 million might. So a lot of the popular ones are going to have their offenses at 10, and the rest of their defenses, health, and army all at 9. Again, that's not a bad idea in terms of building up the reinforced trap, but again, just about anybody could be a reinforced trap if they so choose. The idea, though, is you want to have your stats at least 200%, meaning that if you have your attack on any of your units, you want these to be about 160 to 180, but preferably 200%. And then your attack can be as low as 95 to 125%. Of course, the higher it is, the better. Of course, you don't want to go past your infirmary, meaning that when you actually do, in fact, start trapping, you want to make sure that all of these buildings are infirmaries. You'll know that you've done it right when you'll actually see that your total troop count is 640,000, because that is the maximum that you can actually hold in terms of your actual infirmary healing count. And again, the beauty of this is a reinforced trap can get away with having Battle Fury. And part of the reason why is because a Battle Fury related account like this does not need to go past its infirm, meaning that you don't need to have more than 640,000 troops, and you can break that into whatever you want it to be. So take 640k and divide it by 3, and divide it, and then when you divide it by 3, that's the amount by which you can use between 3 different unit types. So if you had 640,000, you can do that divided by 3, and 640,000 divided by 3 is 213,000 troops that you could put into 3 different slots per type, meaning infantry, range, and cavalry. Of course, it helps a lot that when you are trapping like this, that you have your guild reinforce you with tier 3 or tier 4. Tier 4 are obviously the best reinforcements, but they are also the most expensive for the player that is reinforcing you to pay with. Again, anybody can be a reinforced trap. It is the cheapest form of trapping. And again, some don't even consider it trapping, but rather just reinforce it. But again, the idea behind this kind of concept is that you will never, you might fill an infirm, but ultimately a lot of players will build 640,000 worth of tier 1s, and when they get hit with what they've got, again, a lot of the time it's made, this form of trapping is made designed mainly for tier 3 attacks. You do not want to take rallies, you do not want to take anyone that's a tier 4 player. Just generally speaking, tier 3 players. If you want to move up to tier 4 players, what you will need to do is then go to what we call a solo trap. And of course, solo traps are a fairly expensive form of trapping. You need at least 1 million tier 1 per type. So you need at least 1 million infantry, range, and cavalry. Your stats, instead of having them at roughly, around 200%, you want to take that up a notch and bring it up to 260. So these need to be anywhere from 240 to 260, preferably 260 or higher. And again, your army attack can be anywhere from 130 to 150. But at times you may end up just having to manage with 90 to 120. But again, just getting it as high as possible is the best route you can do. Again, you want to get the way you get by with combination with tier 3 attacks in this situation is, of course, a solo trap. What's neat about a solo trap is a solo trap does not need reinforcements. So you'll have about 1 million tier 1, and then you can walk around and eat attacks from tier 3 players, generally speaking. You can also take hits from tier 4, but if you want to completely eat the attack, meaning that you kill everything they have and take the leader, you want at least 1 million tier 1 and 150,000 per type of tier 3, or you want at least 1 million tier 1 and about 70,000 tier 4 for tier 3 players. For tier 4 players, you're going to want a little bit more than that. You're going to want probably about 1 million tier 1 and then probably about 300,000 tier 3 and about 150,000 tier 4 per type. Again, it is incredibly risky if you have nothing but a million tier 1 against tier 4 players, as some gold champ players will actually be able to solo you out, meaning that you will get an infirm full of 640,000. It is fairly risky to do. I don't advise it. But again, with a tier 4 account that is well managed, it is a very risky thing for a trap to take those kind of hits. Again, it is important that you keep your shielding on as often as possible, meaning that you have to stay 24/7 shielded if you are a solo trap. Otherwise, there's a good chance that you will get zeroed. The act of getting zeroed is basically somebody will find you, and rally the living hell out of you out until you have absolutely nothing. And again, solo traps do wonderful if they do in fact get a full reinforcement. So again, that helps a great deal. It's not necessary, but it does help a good amount. Again, these kind of people that are solo trapping cannot afford to get Battle Fury, unlike a rain trap, so they cannot go around and get Battle Fury in any form. Now, of course, the last form of trapping is a rally trap. Again, a rally trap is by far the most expensive form of trapping in the game. Again, you need about a million tier 1. And or you can get by with about 6 million tier 1 per type. But a popular choice is usually about a million tier 1 and then about 3 million tier 3 per type for tier 3 rallies. For tier 4, you can manage, with a form of trap like rally trapping, you can manage with about 300,000 or so tier 3, meaning that like you could very well get away with like spending, with a million tier 1 per type. You could very well eat a tier 3 rally if they've got a little bit of tier 4 in there, if you've got about 300,000 extra. So if you got about 3.5 to 3.7 million tier 3, you'll be okay. But it does get pretty risky pretty fast. But of course, if you're eating tier 4 rallies, meaning that they're predominantly mainly filled of tier 4, then you want to move over to about 3 million tier 4 per type. And that's for mainly your tier 4 gold champ rallies, meaning the people that are mainly filled of tier 4s and have gold champ gear and all that, which are usually your billion mite players. You want it around 3 million, but sometimes it's best to have like 3.5 million per type. And again, that's the most efficient form of trapping that I've seen, at least up to date. Now, of course, this ratio tends to change quite a bit, so don't quote me on that, but I'm almost certain it is around that number. Preferably anywhere past 3.5 million per type of tier 4 is the best. And the reason why is because you want to actually basically cancel out the first rally they send. So whatever they send, let's say they sent, because again, the maximum they can send at any rally really is like 2.375 or something of that nature. And you always want about a million plus of whatever that is. So a lot of the time, if you've got a little over a million extra, then you're usually generally okay. Again, the same rules apply from a solo trap. You have to be shielded 24/7. You cannot get your Battle Fury. You can be anywhere from 40 million might to 600 million might, because again, rally traps come in all forms. Most of the time, your 40 to 80 million might player is eating tier 3 rallies, while anyone past 80 million might can do tier 4 rallies, especially if they follow that guideline. Again, you want your stats to be about 300% plus, meaning that if you're gonna have attack stats, these need to be around 270 to 280 or 300% plus. In your army attack, you want at least 130 to 170 or maybe even 200 plus percent. And again, when I say that, it also kind of applies to every other stats, not just the attack, but also the HP. I mean, having an HP of like 300% will work great. But again, whatever you can do to make that happen. Again, you want your military stats maxed out, and this applies to all rally traps. You do not at all want these stats to be a little less or a little more. You want them all maxed out. So they all need to be level 10 if you are going to be eating rallies. Then again, the same applies. You want a full level 25 infirmaries, all of them. So you want all of those buildings, all infirmaries essentially, and that'll put you at 640,000 for a total in terms of your actual infirmary. Again, that's the best that you can manage. Essentially, though, if you have done this all correctly, then you should be able to use wedge formations. And now to discuss a couple of disclaimers that I was talking about in the beginning of the video. Quick swaps and talents. What am I talking about? All right, so I have one for war and one for fake. So fake in this case is monster hunting gear. It can be research gear, it can be construction gear, it can be shit war gear. It doesn't really matter as long as it appears like you are clearly not in war gear. Your war gear, obviously, you want a full set of blue, jeweled, and hopefully as like even as you can get attack stats on most of your gear. It doesn't really so much matter what gear types you are picking here as long as they're the best pieces for that slot. So for me, I'm using a Skull Crusher, a Ancient Hat, a Firewall Plate, a Gargantuan Belt, and 3 Burning Scrolls, and a Winter Mitts. You can get by with something like the Eternal Codex and using like the Blight Rings, and you can also use the actual there's a lot of accessory pieces you can pick in here. And again, a lot of the reasons behind this is that, you know, depending on what your 2 unit types are, some people like me like to use all 3. I prefer all 3, but you can manage with picking out a certain formation type that you want to trap harder on, and that's perfectly okay. But the more you deviate from that, the more likely it is that you're going to end up getting countered, which you do not want to have happened as a trap account. Of course, you know, as I was discussing earlier as well, there is also the talent respec, and I'll go ahead and cover that for you. So inside here, the economy is pretty straightforward. I go into construction, research, training speed, and gathering. That is all I go into for my economic. Again, you can have, if you want, multiple talent sets for just about every other purpose. So if you wanted just pure timber, ore, stone, gold, etc., that's perfectly acceptable. For war, the setup that I like to go with is I actually set it so that I only had 17 extra points. But essentially, I max out the squad offense 5, and then I go all the way to the bottom, and I max squad health, range offense, cav offense, and infantry offense. And then I leave a little bit of extra into the other spots, and I put 26 into squad defense too. The idea here is that if, let's say, I'm a little bit deficient on, say, infantry or range, I will fill those stats up with those points to make up for it. Or if I feel like maybe I don't have enough HP, I'll max that out and then maybe put 2 points into defense or something. And again, the idea here is just to make up for whatever I may or may not be lacking in terms of my gear at that current time. Now that covers the talent respec as well as the gear. Again, if you guys want some understanding of the actual gear itself, again, I recommend you check out some of my videos on the spreadsheet as well as how to train troops. Those are both really helpful videos that will hopefully give you guys just a little bit of an insight on how to actually do all the math necessary to actually make a trap account. Again, if you are interested, though, and you want some insight as to what pieces of gear is good, just go to All Equipment, click on the helmet type, and then pick what item that you are going for. In terms of infantry, you always start with the attack. You do not worry about HP defense. So start with whatever you want to focus in. So if you're focusing into all 3, you want to start looking for the best pieces for that slot. And again, everybody has their own opinion. Generally speaking, the champ gear is the best piece of gear that you can put in there, but you can manage just fine for like different slots. There's like, as you can tell, the beast helmet is one of the best that you can get in terms of gear. Obviously, it is more expensive though, depending on how you see it as you get it to gold. Again, in terms of getting those pieces of gear, I don't advise getting too hastily into it, because again, if you get too invested into these sets, it almost makes more sense to get invested into a champ set at the same value of effort. But all the same, I hope you guys found this video somewhat helpful, and this is pretty much how to develop 3 types of trap accounts. Again, this video will eventually become outdated at some point, so I do not recommend taking this all for exact accounts in terms of what the values I've provided you. But as I said, as of today of making this video, those ratios are almost as accurate as you can get. But needless to say, I hope you found this stuff at least somewhat helpful, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.